Okay, so Emily, it's been an exciting time, hasn't it? We've been co-authors for that
Yeah,
amazing book that I've got here behind me there,
yeah,
and I've also got it here. So it's Children's Mental Health Matters. And we've both written a chapter, and your
yeah.
chapter is
Right.
extremely important. I'm just going to read the title of it. The Journey of Understanding and Being Empowered from Behind the Mask of Neurodiversity, Eating Disorders, Mental Health, Suicide, Self-Harm, Trauma, and Other Life Experiences by Emily Nuttall. Wow, that's quite an in-depth. So just tell me a little bit about your chapter.
Yeah, I think my chapter stems from a lot of my lived experience. So obviously, I'm a neurodiverse individual, so I was really late diagnosed. So I didn't get diagnosed until 2017, after being misdiagnosed in 2010. So actually, for me, when I got that diagnosis, I've got experience of eating disorders, mental health, trauma, all of these experiences. Actually, no one talked to me about it. No one gave me that understanding of what I was going through, and I had to kind of navigate that myself on my journey and within the work that I do. And I thought, well, actually, I'm learning a lot. I do training in the area, I do work in the area, and I'm seeing all these things. I'm like, actually, a lot of other people might resonate with some of those experiences that are maybe waiting on diagnosis for neurodiversity, maybe waiting on mental health or eating disorder treatment. And I think it's trying to just give them that support and just that guidance and some, key things to think about from lived experience to empower and hopefully make a difference.
So when did you realize all of this? Because so you say that you didn't really have any help, you didn't have any guidance or anything. So when did you manage to realize for yourself to be able to put things into action?
Yeah. Obviously, so I went through mental health and eating disorder treatment, and for me, I was in inpatient, day patient, outpatient, and I was kind of the right word. I was put into a box of like, you need to fit this criteria, you need to meet this criteria, you need to have this treatment, you need to work in this way, and I think, when I had experiences of being sectioned and when I had experiences of being in inpatient units, like mental health and eating disorder units, it was so, what's the word I'm looking for in my brain? It was rigid and controlling that they didn't really like, they had this, they have a treatment model, and absolutely they need a treatment model in mental health and eating disorder treatment, but it was so rigid to needs that it didn't meet my needs. And they were like, oh, she's not engaging, she's not willing to get better. And they just, in polite words, didn't really care. And they've just kind of given up and said, well, she's not going to be compliant with treatment. She can go out the door and not come back. And, there was, that kind of left me and my family like, well, there is something going on because this is not who I am. And we mentioned to them the autism diagnosis that I had when I was like a teenager, and they were like, "Oh, nothing on there. We don't think there's a problem." They tried to put me down as, a lot of people sadly with neurodiversity and autism get diagnosed with personality disorders, and it still happens to this day, and it really kind of pees me off politely. And I think, they were like, oh, she could have autism, but they didn't think anything of it. So in the end, we had to get a private assessment, and the private assessment absolutely picked up autism. And obviously, the assessment doesn't define, what your experience is. But actually, when I got that diagnosis, I then left a 2.5 year inpatient admission, and it completely opened up my world. And then they were like, oh, we're going to refer you to a specialist mental health autism eating disorder service. We're going to refer you for the right support. And when I heard them say that, I said, oh, this is probably going to be a load of absolute rubbish in polite language. And suddenly my world was just opened, and I had people just coming into my world and walking alongside me and trying to understand me, explore what was happening for me in my way. And the simple thing they asked me was, what do I need to be empowered, engaged and connected and understood and supported and heard? And I was like, no one has ever asked me that in my childhood or my teenage years. And the fact that these clinicians just asked that, I was just sat there amazed, and me and my mum just looked at each other like, did we just hear you correctly? And they were like, yeah. And it's when that happened, my world just completely opened, and I grew as a person, started to go on that growth of self-discovery, which was so, so important. You know, I still had the struggles of an eating disorder, other, you know, co-occurring addictions and all of these struggles, but my world just opened, and then I went on that journey, and I thought in my head, I'm sure there's so many other people that are waiting to be diagnosed, that are misdiagnosed, they're not heard, they're not understood. It's like, well, actually, I'm learning so much about how I'm treated, how the environment I'm treated in, how I'm supported, how people value and see me and understand me. And like, I was like reflecting on that, learning so much about myself. And I'm thinking, well, actually, I probably can give that insight to other people. And maybe, you know, obviously it's the way of working for me, and it's going to be different to other people how they might work it. But if they've got the guidance and the reassurance and the ideas, that hopefully they can implement something from that and bring out their differences and diversities and embrace those differences and diversities.
What do you think would have changed for you if you had had that help when you were younger, when you were much younger?
Yeah, I think probably in the nicest possible way, it would have prevented a 2.5 year inpatient admission. It would have prevented a lot of trauma happening that I'm only pretty much dealing with now. And it would have prevented, you know, when, you know, because I work in the area of neurodiversity, addiction, mental health, eating disorders, suicide. You know, I do a lot of work in those areas, privately, you know, with services, charities, and all sorts. And actually, there is so much to it that if somebody had, you know, we talk about early intervention for, you know, cancer and all of this stuff. It's like, actually, if somebody had given the early intervention when I presented with these certain ways of thinking, feeling, and behaving, and the way I was responding with different co-occurring addictions and like secretive addictions, actually, that might have helped my journey, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So really, the work that you're doing is pretty amazing because you're putting that word out there. You're explaining to other people, you're conveying what has helped you, what is helping you, in the hope that that younger generation can be more aware of what's going on with them, and also the parents and carers or teachers. You've done a lot of courses, haven't you? You've just finished a coaching, I believe.
So counselling level 3. So I've done my level
Okay.
2, I've done my level 3, and I've just had an email on the last day going, you've been put forward for your level 4 next year, date to be confirmed. So I'm, yeah, embarking on the 2.5 year journey. Um, and I think actually, you know, I've been in my own personal private therapy for the last sort of year and a half, and more therapy recently to deal with some other stuff that's come up. And I think actually, you know, they've taken in that neurodiversity. They've understood that I've had experiences of eating disorders, self-harm, you know, depression, trauma, anxiety. And, you know, I've just, you know, started to confront, you know, I've had a gambling addiction and all of these things, but actually people understand me now. And it's like, well, actually, if I'm understood by these people, I want to give that back to somebody else and kind of help somebody and be alongside that person, because we all have the ability to help somebody. We all have the ability to make a difference to someone's life from our lived experience. You know, it could be the smallest thing, and that actually means the biggest impact on somebody's life.
That's amazing, amazing, Emily. Honestly, I really think Emily is wow. Because honestly, that the passion that you put into it, I mean, okay, a lot of it has come from your own experience and from what you're going through. I mean, the amount of things that you do to help other people. You are co-author in how many books?
Well, the book that we've done with the project with Cassie now, I've done about, wow, the other day, I've done 15 books now. I've
15.
co-authored 15 books, and I'm currently writing my own book. And then I've been co-authoring like papers as well, behind the scenes that are going to come out eventually. So it's been busy. I need a library like yours, to be honest, because I'm running out of
Yes,
room. All
for
these
your own
books.
books.
Yeah.
For your own books.
I'm just going to need to rent out storage for books at this rate. But it's, you know, I think as well, I think for me, because obviously I'm always on that journey of self-discovery and growth, and I get the ups and I keep going up, and then I have the downs because life throws you all kind of curveballs slightly, and life experiences that you predict, life experiences you don't predict. And sometimes I have to pick up the books of the stuff that we've done, of the things I've shared that helped me to go back to it and go, well, that helped me. How do I do that now to help myself? Because actually, yes, I'm giving that guidance and that empowerment and that support and that encouragement to other people, but actually, I still need to utilize it for myself. Otherwise, I'm just going to sink myself to the ground and not be any use to anybody.
That is a really, really important point, actually. And I was actually thinking about that. Just because we maybe become an expert in our field, for
Yeah,
instance, like me with the breathing, it doesn't mean that, there will be situations in my life or even illnesses or traumatic experiences or just life issues that go on that will bring my breath out of balance. So,
yeah,
first of all, I think really to be able to convey um, information, we need to be putting that into practice ourselves. And we also have to keep on checking in and checking in and checking in with ourselves. And when we see that we come out of balance, to, put ourselves back into balance again. I was thinking this because we're going to London. We're going to be doing a 1-day retreat for women. And it's going to be very much focused on breathing because that's, what we do. But one of the things that I was thinking is that, some people think that just because we are breathing instructors or we might be master instructors and we teach other people, that our breathing is absolutely perfect. But it also comes out of balance. So we've permanently be checking in and working on our breathing, for instance. And that's exactly what you've just said, with you. These books, especially these cooperative books, are really, really good. There's
yeah,
so much information from different angles that can also help us.
yeah.
So this is really why I think that this book is extremely powerful because of all the different topics that are being.
And it's giving them those toolboxes and those resources, isn't it? And I think, something else I touch on in the chapter is masking, because actually we all wear masks, even when we're the most strong, look at seeming the strong, most capable people. We all mask when the rubbish stuff politely hits us, or the difficult stuff hits us, or the life experiences, or the addictions, or the struggles that hit us. That actually, we mask, and it's like, well, actually, that's just a human response, and it's like, how do we manage that? How do we work with that? And how do we grow from that? And it's coming back to who we are and grounding ourselves, which is so important.
And when you help people, how do you do that? Do you do in-person consultation or do you do online or?
Bit of everything, really. So I do. So I've spoken at 3 in-person conferences already this year. Um, and then I've done one online conference. I'm doing another online conference in July, I want to say. It's being confirmed. And I do a lot of training as well. So I obviously do my day-to-day job. I do training in Guernsey's health service. And I also work in the charity sector. I also work for King's College. I work for Maudsley. I work for Bournemouth. I work for Freed. I work for Peace Pathway. I've got the private work. I work for Suicide Prevention Charity. I work for Uni of Birmingham, so not much, and all the private work. And I've just started a new role with another project for empowerment into eating disorder treatment, which is part of the book. And I multitask, and then sometimes I get burnt out, and I'm like, have to take some time off and then come back. But I do a lot of online kind of webinars as well. So I do online training, and I adapt it to what the service wants as well, because a lot of people, when they work with autism, neurodiversity, eating disorders, mental health, it's about training them for the right environment, the right treatment, the right support, and the right, adaptabilities,
Mm.
which is really, really crucial.
Yeah, I think that's the most important, especially in your sector, because you're coming from there. So you can
Yeah,
also relate to what that person is going through. And you can
yeah,
also
and
think, okay, right, well, maybe it might be better to go down this route. It might be better to go down that route. So you can adapt rather than somebody that's just learned from a book,
yeah,
from
and I think as
studying and from
well,
learning. I think it's the same, for instance, like in a psychologist. It's not the same psychologist that's gone down the psychology route because that's what they want to do as a profession, but because they have also had their own issues and they've overcome those issues, then just a psychologist that sort of thought, right, okay, what am I going to study? Okay, let's study psychology. And they've just learned out of a book because they haven't
yeah,
gone through that experience. It's so much
yeah,
more difficult to be able to be empathic with that other person, to be able to get into that other person's skin.
Yeah, and it's embracing that, isn't it? And it's understanding what's the needs. I share a bit in the book about thinking about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. What needs are we needing to meet to help that person fully self-actualize and be who they need to be, and embrace who they need to be, and how can we support them? Because obviously, I completely understand that in education services, mental health, eating disorder services, addiction services, there's limited staff, limited resources. So they kind of box people in, but actually that doesn't always work. And then they're like, oh, they're not willing. Well, they are willing. It's just not the right time or the right space or the right place or the right way of working. And then it's getting to learn about that and understand what that person needs and trying to adapt with it as much as possible, as much as you can, and learn from that individual. A lot of my experience I share is learning from what worked for me and what didn't. And one of the most simple things in my experience was a piece of paper and a pen in a session. I had somebody working with me. They didn't stare at me for an hour. They just said, "Can you enjoy the experience?" And then that opened up my world. That opened up a conversation, and it was just the most empowering thing. And I said that only took 1 hour of that person's time, and it was a piece of paper and a pen, and it was a fidget toy, and it was the right lighting in the right environment. I said that's literally all that took. And that's not going to cost your service £10 million. It's going to cost you maybe 20p for a piece of paper, and that's probably about it. But that was so crucial because then that opened up my world.
What you're saying is looking outside of the box.
Yeah.
And this is where, in your chapter, you are also sharing those tools. So, for instance, if there are teachers or there are carers or there are social workers that work with people that have issues, this book is going to give them those tools or those ideas to be able to work outside of the box.
Absolutely. And there's a saying as well that I use in my work. So there was a school that I do some coaching work with, disability coaching and like mentoring, and I volunteer in some disability sports. And there's a school motto that they've got, and they've always allowed me to use it, obviously keeping the school anonymous. But there's a saying that by being different, we succeed together. By being different, we succeed together.
Yes. Yeah,
So
I totally
embrace those differences, and then we bring that success. If we're all put in the same box and taught in the same way, treated in the same way, supported in the same way, we're not going to achieve what we want to achieve. So it's embracing that difference and diversity. And I learned so much from it. And I actually learn, because I work in the lived experience field, I learn so much from other people's lived experience that I maybe never thought about in my lived experience. And then it just opens up my world a little bit more.
Yeah, I love that, Emily. I think that's fantastic. Okay, well, we're not going to be talking anymore because otherwise you're going to reveal all of your content. And what we want is people to actually purchase the book.
Yeah, absolutely. And people can contact me through the link tree. You click on it, it gives you your contact details.
Yeah, there's a QR code there. So then people can actually go on there and they will also be able to find all the links. And also they will find the audio, all the chapters recorded in it. So there are people that if they don't want to be reading all the time, then they can listen as well.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you very much, Emily. I think
So
this
welcome.
has been a super conversation.
Yeah, it has been. We could talk about this all day, I think,
Well, that is the thing, but yeah, we have to
We
keep
want
it
people to buy the book.
short.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Yeah,
thank
no,
you.
super. Yeah, I think the work that you do is absolutely amazing. Do you ever go over to London?
Yeah, I was in London in March actually. So I spoke at an international eating disorders conference in March, in front of about 800 people.
Oh,
So not
wow.
many. And there was about 1,000 people at this event altogether, which was wonderful. But the neurodiverse world, it was very overwhelming. And after 12 hours of people, I needed to be a tortoise for 24 hours. But yeah, I've spoken in London. I've done training in London. I've done some training in other parts of the UK. I've just been in Cardiff recently, actually. Spoke at another conference in Cardiff.
So you're actually becoming quite well known.
Yeah, and I travel to places when it allows me because obviously I live in Guernsey. But I do like the in-person thing, like connections that you make, and those are like in-person connections can be so empowering. But obviously the online world is just as open to opportunity and growing that world.
So there are a lot of people that are also going through a lot, and maybe the young teenagers or even young children that might think that the life ahead of them is going to be really difficult and hard, and it's going to be all gloom.
Yeah.
But really looking at you, the way that you're saying that even though you still go through a lot of issues and a lot of traumatic issues and they keep coming up and what have you. But you're doing so much. You're traveling, you're going to conferences, you're collaborating with so many associations. You have co-authored 15 books, you're writing your own book. I mean, it's amazing. I mean, what you've achieved at such a young age. I mean, I don't know how old you are.
31, going to be 32 in September.
32 in September, and you've achieved so much already. Is really, really empowering. Okay, so we're going to leave it here. Yeah. Otherwise, we will go on for hours and hours.
Yeah.
Anyway, take care, Emily. And
Thanks so much.
yeah, we will still be in touch, and no doubt we will be connecting in other things.
And connecting from the next book as well,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
absolutely. Oh, well, thank you so much, Fleur. And